The long battle was finally over, and Captain Ryan Hale felt as if his body carried the weight of the stars. He walked slowly down the metallic corridor of the starship Valiant Spear, his boots echoing against the steel floor. Every step reminded him of the chaos of the last mission fire. Explosions and close calls that almost ended his life. Now, at last, he wanted peace. Even for a few minutes, he wanted silence. A private place where he could breathe. Ryan reached the door of his private changing room. Only senior officers had these small personal spaces, and he guarded his privacy fiercely. But tonight, something felt strange. The door was not fully closed. It stood open by a thin crack, just wide enough to let a slice of dim light spill into the hall. Ryan frowned. He clearly remembered shutting it tightly before the mission. A warning signal went off in his mind. He placed his hand on the side of the door and pushed it gently. The metallic hinge gave a soft creak, and the room opened before him. At first, nothing seemed wrong. His locker stood in the corner, his uniform neatly folded on the bench, but the air felt different. There was a faint scent he had never smelled before, sweet but sharp, almost like flowers mixed with ozone. Ryan stepped inside carefully, his eyes scanning every corner, and then he saw it. In the shadows near the locker, crouched low as if trying to hide, was a figure. His heart jumped to his throat. Someone was inside, waiting. The figure shifted slightly, and the light caught smooth skin with a faint shimmer. Not like any humans. Ryan's pulse quickened. This was no soldier from his crew. This was something else. "Who are you?" Ryan demanded, his voice firm but quiet. His hand moved instinctively to the side of his belt. Where his sidearm rested, the figure froze, then slowly rose from the shadows. It was a young woman, tall and slender, with eyes that glowed faintly like liquid silver. Her skin carried a soft luminescence as if lit from within. Strands of her hair floated lightly, as though gravity did not fully touch them. Ryan's first thought was danger. An intruder on a warship could only mean trouble. But the expression on her face was not hostile, it was nervous. Almost frightened, she lifted her hand slightly in surrender, her voice trembling when she spoke. "Please, don't hurt me, Captain Hale," she whispered. Her accent was unfamiliar, her tone melodic. Every word carried a strange echo, as though two voices spoke at once. Ryan narrowed his eyes. She knew his name. She should not have been able to reach this room, not past security, not past locked doors. And yet here she was, standing only a few feet away. "How do you know me?" he asked sharply, his voice cut through the silence. But his grip on the weapon stayed firm. The girl lowered her head slightly, as if ashamed. "I've watched you," she admitted softly. I admire you. I had to meet you." Ryan blinked, stunned by the answer. This was not what he expected. Spies, assassins, infiltrators. Yes, but not admiration. Still, he could not lower his guard. Her presence was a mystery, and mysteries on a warship often ended in blood. "You broke into a military vessel just to say that?" Ryan asked, disbelief in his tone. The girl bit her lip, her silver eyes shimmering in the dim light. "Yes," she said quietly. "I know it was dangerous, but I could not stop myself. You are the human hero I've always wanted to see." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. He had heard aliens call him enemy, monster, even destroyer, but never hero. Something about her tone unsettled him. This was not normal admiration. It was deeper, stranger. He took a slow step forward. Testing her reaction, she did not move, only watched him with unblinking eyes. The faint glow of her skin made her look unreal, like a dream formed from starlight. Every instinct in him screamed to call security. And yet, something held him back. Curiosity. Or perhaps the echo of loneliness he rarely admitted. Silence filled the room for a long moment. Then, faintly, the ship's distant alarms hummed through the metal walls. Ryan's jaw tightened. If anyone else discovered her here, both of them would be in danger. He needed answers. He needed them fast. "Start talking," Ryan said firmly. His voice a quiet growl. "Who are you, really? And why risk everything just to stand here in my room?" The alien girl lifted her eyes to meet his for a second. He thought he saw sadness in her glowing stare. Then, in a voice both fragile and unshakable, she whispered, "Because what's coming will destroy you." Unless I help, the word struck Ryan harder than any weapon. In that single moment, the room no longer felt private. It felt like the first step into a storm he could not yet see. Captain Ryan Hale stood frozen, his eyes locked on the glowing alien girl before him. Her words still echoed in his mind, "What's coming will destroy you." Unless I help, he had survived countless battles, faced alien fleets, and fought with death at his side. But nothing felt as strange, as dangerous, as this quiet moment in his own private room. Ryan kept his weapon raised, his instincts screaming to remain careful. "Start explaining," he said, his voice sharp but steady. "No games, no lies. Who are you, and why are you here?" The alien girl clasped her hands together nervously, her glowing eyes flickering like silver flames. "My name is Lyra," she said softly. "I come from the Valari. We are watchers, listeners, and admirers of the humans." Ryan frowned. He had heard of the Valari in whispers. Never in official reports, a secretive alien race, known for hiding more than fighting. But what unsettled him most was the way she looked at him, not with fear, not with hate, but with something else. Admiration, almost devotion. "You broke into a warship past security. Into my private room," Ryan said slowly. "You call me a hero, but for all I know, you could be a spy." Lyra shook her head quickly, her hair shimmering like liquid light. "No, I swear I am not a spy. I am your fan," she said. Her voice trembled, but there was no hesitation in her words. "I have followed your battles for years, Captain Hale. I watched when you saved the colony on Jerry's 4. When you stood alone against the Karth raiders. When you refused to abandon your crew on the burning station. I memorized everything. You are more than human to me. You are living proof that courage still exists in this galaxy." Ryan felt a strange tightness in his chest. The way she spoke, like a child reciting stories of her greatest hero, was unsettling. He had been called many things before: leader, commander, even destroyer, but never hero in such a pure and trembling voice. Still, he did not lower his guard. Admiration could hide deeper intentions. "Even if what you say is true," Ryan said coldly, "that doesn't explain why you are here." Now, Lyra's silver eyes darkened with sadness. "I wanted to see you with my own eyes," she whispered. "To stand here close to the human who faced darkness without fear. To know you are real, not just a story told across the stars." Ryan stared at her. Torn between suspicion and curiosity, her words felt honest, almost too honest. But something about the way she trembled, half afraid, half in awe, kept him from calling the guards. "You risked your life, your people, your freedom. For this?" Ryan asked, disbelief in his voice. Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, but there is more," she admitted. "I came because danger is close, closer than you know. I heard whispers, I saw signs. And I could not stay silent." Ryan's eyes narrowed. Here it was, the second layer. The secret buried beneath her admiration. Danger. He asked, his tone sharp. "What kind of danger?" "Speak clearly." Lyra stepped forward, cautiously, her hands still raised, as if to prove she carried no weapon. "The enemy you fought today was only a shadow," she explained. They planted more than just bombs and fire. They planted seeds of destruction inside your ship, inside your systems, even now, while you breathe. Their plan is moving. Ryan's pulse quickened. Her words struck close to his deepest fear: sabotage. Betrayal from within. How do you know this? He demanded. Lyra looked at him with a mixture of fear and desperation. Because I was there, listening in the void where no human could reach. I heard them speak of your fall. I followed their whispers, and I came here. To warn you. Silence filled the room, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's engines. Ryan's instincts fought against each other. Logic told him not to trust her. But another voice inside him, quieter but stronger, whispered that she was telling the truth. For a moment, his gaze softened. Just slightly. You admire me. You call me a hero. But you also bring warnings of destruction, Ryan said, his voice low. Which one is it, Lyra? Are you here for me, or for my ship? Lyra's glowing eyes shimmered, and she took a slow breath. Both, she said quietly. I admire the human hero, but I also fear the human's fall. If you are destroyed, the galaxy will lose its light. And I cannot let that happen. Her words hung in the air like a weight Ryan could not ignore. For the first time in years, he felt something unusual, not just suspicion or duty, but the sting of being seen, truly seen, by someone beyond his world. He tightened his grip on his weapon, but did not raise it. Then prove it, he said finally. His voice calm but commanding. If what you say is true. If danger really lives inside this ship, you will show me, and if you lie, I will end this myself. Lyra bowed her head slightly, her silver eyes gleaming. I will prove it, she whispered. I would give my life to protect yours. Ryan did not answer. But deep inside, he felt the first spark of something he did not want to admit. A fragile thread of trust, woven by an alien fangirl who had broken through walls no soldier ever dared to cross. The silence stretched long, heavy with questions that had no easy answer. But one thing was certain. This meeting was no accident. It was the beginning of something far greater and far more dangerous than either of them could yet imagine. Captain Ryan Hale's eyes never left Lyra. She stood in front of him like a fragile flame, glowing softly in the dim light. Her words about sabotage still echoed in his mind, but so did his doubt. Every part of his training screamed at him, never trust an intruder. Never trust so easily. Ryan tightened his grip on his sidearm. You expect me to believe all this? He asked coldly. A random alien breaks into my private room, calls me her hero, and then tells me my ship is about to be destroyed. That is too convenient. Lyra flinched at the sharpness in his voice. I understand, she whispered, her tone steady but fragile. You have no reason to trust me, but please, listen. I am not your enemy. Ryan studied her carefully. Her glowing silver eyes, her trembling hands. The way her voice cracked with both fear and determination. She looked sincere, but sincerity could be the best disguise for a spy. He had seen it before, in other wars, when traitors smiled as they betrayed. You say the ship is in danger, Ryan said. His tone colder. Then prove it. Tell me something I don't know. Something only an insider could know. Lyra hesitated, her lips pressing together as if she carried a secret too heavy to release. Finally, she took a deep breath, her glowing skin dimming slightly. There is a device in your engine chamber, she said, small, hidden, but deadly. It is not meant to explode like a bomb. It is worse. It is meant to corrupt your systems slowly. To turn your weapons and shields against you when you need them most. Ryan's stomach tightened. A sabotage device that was one of his worst fears. But her knowledge could have been guessed. Anyone could imagine sabotage after a battle. He needed more details. He pressed. Where exactly? How does it look? What's the trigger? Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, as if replaying the memory. "It is shaped like a shard of crystal," she whispered. "Clear, almost invisible. It feeds on energy the more your engines run. The stronger it becomes when it reaches full charge. Your ship will tear itself apart from the inside." Ryan felt a cold chill spread through him. Her words were too specific, too sharp. This was not the kind of detail someone could invent without knowledge. And yet, the nagging voice of suspicion remained in his mind. "Why should I believe you?" Ryan asked, his voice lowering into a growl. "For all I know, you planted it yourself. And now you're pretending to be my savior." Lyra's glowing eyes widened with hurt. "No, I swear I would never harm you," she said quickly. Her voice shook, but her gaze held steady. "If I wished to destroy you, I would not be here. I would not risk my life to warn you. I would not stand before your weapon." Ryan studied her again. He had faced enemies who lied, cheated, and killed without blinking. But Lyra's desperation did not feel like an act. Still, he could not let emotion cloud his judgment. A faint alarm hummed in the distance, a reminder that the ship was still active. Still vulnerable, Ryan's jaw tightened. If she spoke the truth, then every second they wasted brought the ship closer to disaster. But if she lied, then trusting her would be his greatest mistake. "Captain Hale," Lyra said softly. Breaking the silence, "I know what you are thinking. You are asking yourself if I am a spy, a liar, or a fool, but I am none of those. I am someone who believes in you more than I believe in myself. That is why I am here." Her words cut through the air like a blade. Ryan wanted to dismiss them. But something deep inside stirred a feeling he rarely allowed himself to acknowledge. The feeling of being seen not as a soldier, not as a commander, but as a human. He shook it off. Emotions were dangerous. This was about survival, not admiration. "Enough," Ryan said sharply. "You will come with me, if what you say is true. Then you will show me this device, but if you try anything, I will end it before you take another step." Lyra nodded quickly, relief flickering in her glowing eyes. "I will show you," she promised. "You will see I am not lying." Ryan motioned for her to move. But before they could leave, voices echoed faintly from the corridor outside. Two security officers walked past, their boots loud against the metal floor. Ryan cursed silently. If they saw Lyra here, it would mean trouble for both of them. He pushed her gently back toward the shadows, signaling for silence. Lyra's silver eyes widened with fear, but she obeyed, pressing against the wall, glowing softly like starlight trapped in human shape. The guards passed, their voices fading. Ryan exhaled slowly, lowering his weapon but keeping it close. The tension in the room thickened. This was no longer just about sabotage. Now it was about secrets, trust, and survival. Ryan turned back to her, his eyes hard but his voice steady. "You're walking a thin line, Lyra," he warned. "One wrong move, and it's over." Lyra nodded again, her expression calm but determined. "I will not fail you," she said quietly. "I came here because I believe in you, Captain Hale, and soon you will believe in me too." Her words hung heavy in the silence. Ryan wanted to dismiss them, to stay cold and professional, but deep inside, a thought formed, dangerous, unwanted, but impossible to ignore. What if she is telling the truth? Captain Ryan Hale did not like mysteries on his ship. He had fought in battles across the galaxy, faced enemies stronger and stranger than anything in the old Earth stories. But this un-alien girl sneaking aboard, hiding secrets behind silver eyes, this was different, and he could not ignore it any longer. Lyra sat quietly in the corner of the chamber he had locked her in. The room was small, built for holding prisoners or dangerous cargo. Yet she did not look like a prisoner. Her glowing hair dimmed, her eyes lowered. She almost looked guilty. Ryan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, studying her carefully. "You broke into my private quarters," he said. His voice calm but sharp. "You say you're only a fan. Someone who wanted to see me, but you know too much about this ship. About me. So tell me, what are you really hiding?" Lyra's shoulders trembled, but she lifted her head slowly. Her silver eyes met his, shimmering with emotion. "I wanted to tell you," she whispered, "but I was afraid if I spoke too soon." "You would never trust me." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Afraid of what?" He pressed. Lyra drew a shaky breath, then raised her glowing hands slightly. "I am not just a fangirl," she said softly. "I came because something dangerous is inside your ship. Something no one else can see." The words sent a cold weight through Ryan's chest. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he pushed away from the wall and stepped closer. His tone sharp. "You expect me to believe that? That my ship's under threat and none of my officers have noticed?" Lyra shook her head quickly, desperation in her voice. "They cannot see it because it hides in the flow of energy. It is not a weapon you can touch. It is a living shard. It feeds on your engines." Waiting to strike when the power is strongest, Ryan froze, his fists clenching at his sides. Her words reminded him of the strange fluctuations in the engine core weeks earlier. Small irregularities his engineers had dismissed as minor errors. But what if they were not errors? What if she was right? Still, suspicion burned inside him. "Convenient story," he muttered darkly. "An alien girl sneaks onto my ship, and suddenly she claims to know about sabotage. Why should I believe a word you say?" Lyra's eyes filled with tears, glowing faintly in the dim light. "Because I left my home for this," she said, her voice breaking. "My people saw the shard fall from the stars. We tracked it. We knew it was dangerous. And when I learned it had reached your fleet, I came. I came for you. Because I knew you were the only one who could stop it." Ryan's heart pounded. Her words were strange, desperate, but something about them carried weight. He had heard countless lies in his life, but this did not sound like one. Still, belief was dangerous. And trust was even more dangerous. The door hissed open suddenly, and Lieutenant Kieran stepped inside, saluting quickly. "Captain." "We've got something odd," he reported. The engineers picked up another surge in the reactor core. Just like last week, Ryan turned sharply, his eyes flicking back to Lyra. She stared at him, her expression torn between fear and hope. "Do you see now?" she whispered. "It has already begun." The lieutenant frowned, confused by the girl's words. "Captain, who is she?" he asked. Ryan raised a hand, silencing him. "That's not important," he said coldly. Though his mind raced, if Lyra was telling the truth, then the entire ship was in danger. But if she was lying, she could be leading him into a trap. Lyra stood, her glow rising slightly. "Please," she begged. "Take me to the engine chamber. I can show you. I can prove I am not lying." Ryan hesitated, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. He had always trusted his instincts. And right now, those instincts were divided. Logic said to lock her away, to let his crew handle the surges. But something deeper whispered that if he ignored her, it would be too late. Finally, he nodded once, his voice firm. "Lieutenant, double security around the engine room. Prepare containment protocols." Then he turned to Lyra, his eyes hard but steady. "You will come with me. But if this is a trick, if one crew member is harmed..." Lyra bowed her head, her voice trembling. "I understand, Captain," she whispered. "But I promise, this is no trick." As they moved through the corridors, the hum of the ship seemed louder than usual. Ryan walked at the front, his hand never far from his weapon. Behind him, Lyra followed silently, her glow faint but steady. The ship shook lightly as another surge rippled through the engines. And Ryan's jaw tightened when they finally reached the doors to the chamber. Lyra stopped, her entire body glowing brighter now. Her silver eyes widened with fear. "It's worse than I thought," she breathed. Ryan turned to her sharply. "What do you mean?" Lyra raised a trembling hand and pointed toward the sealed chamber. "The shard," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It's awake." The ship's metallic walls trembled with a low hum. And Captain Ryan Hale felt the weight of every step he took. Beside him, Lyra moved silently, her glowing skin faint in the dim corridors. He kept his weapon close, his eyes scanning each corner. Every sound, every shadow, even now. He was not sure if he was walking with an ally or leading a danger deeper into the heart of his ship. The engine chamber was not far, but it felt like a lifetime to reach it. Each hallway echoed with voices and footsteps of security teams. The crew was still on high alert after the battle. If anyone saw Lyra, they would not hesitate to raise alarms. And Ryan would be forced to answer questions he wasn't ready to face. Lyra stayed close behind him, her movements light and careful. Her glowing eyes flicked nervously at every sound. But when Ryan glanced at her, she looked back with quiet determination. It was strange, he thought, that someone who appeared so fragile could walk so boldly into danger. As they turned a corner, 2 security officers came into view. Ryan's pulse spiked. He raised a hand quickly. Signaling Lyra to hide, without a word, she pressed herself into a shadowed alcove, her shimmering skin dimming as if she willed her glow to fade. The guards passed slowly, their conversation casual but sharp to Ryan's ears. "Strange activity in the lower decks," one muttered. "Command says to double patrols, just in case someone slipped through after the battle." Ryan's jaw clenched. They were getting closer to the truth, closer to discovering Lyra. The guards disappeared around the corner. And Ryan let out a slow breath. He turned back to Lyra, who stepped quietly out of the shadows for the first time. He noticed the way her glowing skin seemed to pulse faintly with her heartbeat. She looked at him with gratitude, her voice a whisper. "You could have let them see me." "But you didn't." Ryan said nothing, only motioned for her to follow. His silence was safer than admitting what he felt, an uneasy pull between duty and something more. They moved on deeper into the ship until the air grew warmer, the low thrum of the engines vibrating through the floor. The engine chamber was near. Lyra slowed as they reached a sealed door. Her glowing eyes scanned the metal, as if she could see through it. "It is inside," she whispered. "The shard, I can feel it feeding." Like a parasite, Ryan stared at her, suspicious but also unsettled. Her words carried certainty. Not guesswork, but how could she feel something hidden inside steel and circuits? Before he could ask, heavy footsteps echoed from the far end of the hall. A squad of security soldiers, fully armed, marched toward their position. Ryan cursed under his breath. If they reached the door and saw Lyra, it was over. He looked at her quickly, his voice sharp but quiet. "Hide now." Lyra's silver eyes widened. But she obeyed, slipping behind a maintenance console. Her glow dimmed almost completely. Like starlight swallowed by shadow, the squad passed, their boots striking the floor in unison. Ryan stood tall, giving a sharp nod of respect as they saluted him in passing. None of them suspected the alien girl hiding only a few feet away. When the hall fell silent again, Lyra emerged, her voice trembling with urgency. "They are everywhere. If they find me, they will think I am the enemy." Her eyes softened as she looked at him. "But you? You did not hand me over. You kept me safe." Ryan looked at her, his expression unreadable. He told himself it was only strategy keeping her hidden until he knew the truth. But deep inside, he knew there was something more. A dangerous connection forming where there should be none. He turned back to the sealed engine door. "This is your chance," he said firmly. If you're telling the truth, prove it. Show me this shard. Lyra stepped closer, her hand hovering above the metal. Her silver eyes glowed brighter, reflecting the faint lights of the corridor. She pressed her palm gently against the door, and a strange ripple of light spread across her skin. Her voice lowered, almost like a chant. It is here. I can feel the energy twisting. It is growing stronger by the second. Ryan's breath caught. Her certainty was too sharp, too confident to be faked. He had no idea how she could sense it. But her words made his chest tighten if she was right. The ship was closer to disaster than anyone realized. The tension in the corridor was thick, heavy with silence and danger. Ryan's weapon stayed ready in his hand, but his eyes were fixed on her. He could no longer deny it. Something about Lyra was real, something he could not explain, and for the first time, he wondered if the fate of his ship, and maybe more, now rested in the hands of this strange, glowing girl who called herself his Fangirl. But before he could speak, a sudden tremor shook the ship. The floor vibrated violently. Alarms blared in the distance. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. "It has begun," she whispered. "They are moving faster than I thought." Ryan felt his blood run cold. There was no more time for questions. No more time for doubt. The sabotage was real, and now he would have to decide: trust her completely or lose everything. The alarms screamed through the corridors, red lights flashing against the steel walls. Captain Ryan Hale braced himself as the ship shook again, the vibration rattling through the floor beneath his boots. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Lyra had warned him, and now the proof was shaking the valiant spear apart. "Captain!" Voices shouted from down the hall. Crew members rushed past, their faces tense, their voices filled with panic. No one noticed Lyra hidden in the shadows, her glowing skin dimmed to almost nothing. But Ryan noticed her always. He turned to her sharply, his voice a low growl beneath the sirens. "This is it, isn't it?" "The sabotage," Lyra nodded quickly, her silver eyes wide with fear. "Yes. The shard is feeding faster than I thought. Soon it will reach full power, and when it does, your engines will turn against you. They will tear your ship apart." Ryan clenched his jaw. Every part of him screamed to call his officers, to raise full alert and send teams swarming through the engine room. That was the official way, the safe way. But his instincts told him something different. If the shard was real, it might already be beyond the reach of normal crew. And there stood Lyra, glowing faintly, trembling with both fear and determination. She was the one who had warned him before anyone else. She was the one who spoke of this sabotage when he doubted her. And now he had to choose. Trust her, or trust the rules. He took a sharp breath, his mind racing. If she was lying, if this was a trap, then trusting her would doom them all. But if she was telling the truth, ignoring her would mean the end, for the first time in years. Ryan Hale felt hesitation. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Captain, I can stop it," she said. "But I need your help. I cannot reach it alone. You must decide now. Do you believe me?" Her glowing eyes locked on his, and in that moment, Ryan felt the weight of command press heavier than ever before. This was not just a battle, not just an order. This was trust. Raw and dangerous. The ship shook violently again. Sparks bursting from the ceiling lights. Screams echoed faintly down the corridors as crew fought to stabilize systems. There was no time left. Ryan lowered his weapon slowly, his voice firm. "Fine," he said, his tone sharp but filled with resolve. "I'll trust you for now. Show me what to do." Lyra's expression softened, relief flashing across her glowing features. "Thank you," she whispered. "You won't regret this." They moved quickly, slipping through a side passage that bypassed the main patrol routes. Ryan's knowledge of the ship's hidden halls guided them. Lyra kept close, her movements light. Her glow dim enough to blend with the red emergency lights. At last, they reached the engine chamber. The massive doors groaned as Ryan keyed in his access code. The metal sliding open with a hiss, heat, and noise poured out. The roar of the engines like a living beast, the chamber glowed with pulsing energy. Blue and white streams of power flowing through the walls. Lyra gasped softly, her eyes fixed on the heart of the chamber. "There," she whispered, pointing. Ryan followed her gaze. Sand froze, just above the main core, clinging to the steel like a parasite. Was a crystal-like shard. It shimmered faintly, almost invisible against the glow of the engines. But as Ryan stared, he saw it pulsing, feeding on the ship's energy, growing brighter with every heartbeat. His stomach twisted. She had been telling the truth. Ryan lifted his communicator to call his officers. But Lyra stopped him. "No," she said urgently, grabbing his arm, "if you alert them. The shard will react. It will spread faster. The only way is to weaken it quietly without feeding its hunger." Ryan hesitated, torn between training and instinct. Then how? He demanded. Lyra stepped closer to the core, her glow reflecting against the crystal. "I can drain it," she said. "My people were born to sense and shift energy. I can take its power, but it will hurt me." Ryan's eyes hardened. He hated the thought of risking his ship on her unproven promise. But the shard was real, and it was growing. If she didn't act now, there might not be another chance. "You expect me to let you sacrifice yourself?" Ryan asked sharply. Lyra turned her glowing eyes back to him. Her voice calm. "If it saves you, if it saves this ship, then yes, I will. I told you before, I would give my life for yours." The words struck him harder than the alarms. Ryan Hale was a man who carried duty above all else. But hearing her say Itan alien, a stranger, willing to risk everything for him, stirred something deep inside. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. The shard pulsed, the engines roared, the alarm screamed, and Ryan Hale, for the first time in years, made a choice not with his rank, but with his heart. He stepped closer to her. His voice low but steady. "Do it," he said. "But you are not alone. If you fall, I'll carry the rest. We end this together." Lyra's silver eyes widened. Shimmering with both fear and hope, she nodded. Placing her glowing hands against the core, a wave of light burst across the chamber. The shard flaring like a star fighting for survival. And Captain Ryan Hale braced himself, knowing he had crossed a line he could never return from. The engine chamber trembled violently as Lyra pressed her glowing hands against the shard. Energy surged around her like living fire, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. Captain Ryan Hale stood beside her, his sidearm lowered, but his eyes sharp, scanning every corner for threats. He could feel the shard's hunger in the air, the way it drew power from the ship itself. Twisting the engines against them, Lyra's glow brightened, her entire body shimmering like a beacon of starlight. She gritted her teeth, the effort evident in the tension of her shoulders. "This is harder than I thought," she gasped. "The shard fights me. It wants to consume everything. It knows what I am trying to do." Ryan clenched his jaw. "I know," he said, his voice firm, "but we can't let it win. Not here, not now." Suddenly, the shard pulsed violently, and a wave of energy shot through the chamber. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and Ryan was thrown back against the wall. He groaned as he regained his footing, sweat and grime streaking his face. Lyra's glow flickered dangerously, her knees almost buckling under the force. "You can't give up," Ryan shouted, rushing to her side. His hands hovered near hers, ready to help. But careful not to disrupt her focus. "I'm not giving up," she cried back, her voice trembling but strong. This is for you. For the ship. For everyone. The shard pulsed one final time, brighter than the engine lights themselves. Then, with a high-pitched hum that shook the walls, it began to crack. Tiny fissures ran across its crystalline surface. Blue energy sputtering like lightning trapped in glass. Ryan's heart raced, hope and fear clashing inside him. If it shattered too violently, the chamber could collapse, killing them both. Lyra screamed, her glow flaring like a sun. Ryan lunged forward instinctively. Catching her arm to steady her, the shard cracked again, this time splintering into countless tiny shards that spun in the air like frozen fireflies. Then, suddenly, it vanished, absorbed completely into Lyra's glowing hands. The chamber went silent except for the low hum of the engines. Running smoothly once more, Ryan stepped back, stunned. His mouth slightly open. It's gone, he whispered. Lyra slumped against him. Exhaustion washing over her, her glow dimmed, fading until she looked almost human again, fragile and small. Ryan helped her sit on the edge of a control panel, his hands steadying her. You saved the ship, he said quietly. Awe in his voice. Lyra's silver eyes met his. Shimmering softly, I had to, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You trusted me, even when you shouldn't have. That's why I could do it. Ryan's chest tightened. He had faced countless enemies, survived impossible battles. Yet nothing had tested him like this, trusting an alien, risking everything on her word alone. He realized then that heroism was not only about courage in battle, but courage to trust when everything else screamed danger. A sudden crackle over the ship's communicator drew their attention. Captain Hale, all systems normal, engine stable. No signs of sabotage remaining. Ryan exhaled slowly, relief flooding through him. The crew had no idea how close they had come to disaster. Lyra had saved them all, silently and brilliantly. Then, just as he began to relax, Lyra's glow returned slightly, faint but noticeable. Her silver eyes glimmered with something he hadn't expected, power, but also a secret smile. Ryan looked at her. Suspicion rising again. You absorbed it? He asked carefully. Lyra nodded. Yes, the shard's energy. It is mine now, but it won't harm anyone else, I promise. Ryan studied her for a long moment. Her words were true. He could sense it, and yet there was something more, something in her eyes that hinted at mysteries he could not yet understand. The fangirl who had broken into his room, who had seemed fragile and scared, was no longer just an admirer. She was something far greater, a force of her own, and the galaxy had only begun to see it. He smiled faintly, the first time since the battle. Lyra, he said softly, you are more than a fangirl. You're incredible. She looked at him, a hint of blush in her glowing cheeks, and laughed softly. I told you, she whispered. I would do anything for you. Ryan shook his head, chuckling despite the tension. He had no idea what would come next. Enemies, sabotage, new threats. It didn't matter. They had survived together, and somehow, he knew this was only the beginning. The ship's alarms ceased, the engines hummed steadily, and the corridors were calm. Yet, in the quiet after the storm, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had just changed forever. And in the middle of it all, an alien fangirl had entered his life, bringing both danger and hope, and he had to wonder, was she only a fangirl, or something far more important than he could ever imagine? The glow in her eyes flickered one last time, and Ryan realized he was not just staring at a stranger. He was staring at the start of a new story, one that would test him, challenge him, and maybe even change him. And for the first time in a long time, he was ready. The valiant spear drifted silently through the stars, its engines safe, its crew unaware, and in the quiet, A new bond had formed between a human hero and an alien who had risked everything to save him. The galaxy had survived another day, but neither of them knew what adventures awaited next. One thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again.